episode of Sports and Songs podcast. We're joined today with Craig. We're going to do a 2023 NFL draft preview show. How you doing, Craig?
All right, we're doing good.
So it's always fun this time of year when April rolls around. Teams get ready to draft. There's all these websites that have mock drafts, all these versions of mock drafts. Who's going to go? Who's not? Fantasy magazines are getting ready to be printed for the summer, and they need to know who's taking who. And so we're going to cover that today. We're going to cover the NFL draft, do a preview, get some thoughts from Craig, and see here what he thinks. First of all, the dates coming up. It's April 27th, 28th, 29th. It's held in Kansas City, Missouri. And do you like this format where they do the Thursday night first round?
Yeah, I actually like it.
And then Friday night is second and third round, right?
Yes.
And Saturday is rounds 4 through 7. And so they get it on TV instead of just a 2-day event where they jam pack it all. They moved it to prime time. They have it now last couple of years in the evening. People can watch it. There's actual watch parties. There's bars, sports bars that have events that are going on during this thing, and some of the stadiums have their own viewing party. Like the Vikings will have something at their training camp facilities where you can go and watch and pay a ticket and have a party and watch who gets drafted. All for you go there all day, the evening, and it's just the Vikings are one pick. But they have a whole party for this kind of stuff. Now, each team, once again, for the newer listeners out there, 7 picks, 7 rounds. The Vikings this year only have 4 selections, I think, or 5.
Yeah, they're low.
And they're low because of when they went out and got T.J. Hawkinson, right?
Yeah.
They spent a couple draft picks, I think, on him. So they're light this year. But for the normal case, there's 7 selections or 7 picks. Some teams could have 10, 12 picks by the time the trading and all this stuff behind the scenes and the shenanigans are done. But that Thursday night's usually pretty fun. So what do you think? First off, Craig, do you see any surprises this year?
As far
as predictions? They got all these mock drafts. Mel Kiper Jr. and these folks have gone through and done a full analysis. And then usually on day one, you get some random pick that throws everything out of skew. Do you think there'll be anything like that for this year's draft?
Yes. I think the first 5 picks are going to be scrambled. They're not going to go. Mel Kiper he ain't going to know nothing after this draft. I tell you that much.
So right off the bat, the first 5 picks you think are going to be messed up. Same guys, just different order, different teams, or different guys altogether?
I got one guy sliding.
Okay.
And so I don't think Arizona is going to be picking 3rd, but I don't know. Either Titans, Indy, or maybe even Atlanta will try to get that 3rd pick. But
so you see a trade in the and that's been very popular recently. All these trades going on behind the scenes. So it's fun. Now, do you focus your analysis more on Big Ten guys? Do you focus on the guys coming out of the SEC? Do you focus on just the top players, top skill players, or everything? Are you like a Mel Kiper that just you study all the stuff, all the players?
Yes and no. I kind of look at what the team's needs are and what I think they should pick at that position, wherever they're drafting. So I kind of go off of that. And then, Big Ten, probably I follow more than other conferences for sure. So.
Or do you follow, are there teams in particular you follow in the NFL? Vikings, the Eagles.
They're my adopted team, but no.
Your adopted team. So Craig now lives in Philadelphia. He's a Pennsylvania guy. He's following the Eagles now, a former Vikings fan. Any other teams you follow closely?
Chargers are probably when they were in San Diego. Now they moved to LA. It's kind of like, but when they were in San Diego, they were my favorites. So no Cowboys, though. Don't like the Cowboys.
So. All right. So who do you see in those first 5 picks? Do you have them jotted down there?
Yeah.
When the draft comes up, we'll go back and rewatch this and see how accurate everybody was.
Oh, take it to Vegas.
Take it to Vegas, baby.
Number 1, I got Carolina taking Anthony Richardson. He had a great combine. he was off the charts. I don't think he's as polished as Bryce Young, but he can hurt you with your feet also. So I think upside in Richardson at 1. I think Carolina is going to go with that.
How about number 2?
Number 2, the Texans. This is where the swerve comes in. Everyone's
Okay.
thinking Bryce Young, but they hired a new coach in Texas. He's a former linebacker. I think he's going to want Will Anderson of Alabama. I think they're going to roll the dice with Mills for another year. He's all right. He's not terrible. So I think that's what will happen there. So that leaves us with Arizona, who's got Kyle Murray.
Okay.
So this is where people are going to want to trade to get Bryce Young. So, well, I think 3, the Cardinals will take, even though he's in trouble, he got in a little trouble in the offseason, I think they're going to take Carter from Georgia, defensive. He's awesome. He's dominating. He can replace J.J. Watt, who retired. That's who I'm going to say at 3, but it's going to be a wash because someone's going to trade up for that pick. So
I see. And if they do, who's your projection there? If there's some trading going on, is that there's multiple scenarios there?
He'll be off. That's what they're going to trade up for. It's Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. But I would have to say Bryce Young will go 3 overall to whoever wants to pay the tax for him. So that's my assessment.
And then how about when you get down to 4 and 5?
All the Colts, they're going to – it'd be Bryce Young if he's there. If he's there, for sure. Bryce Young all the way. Indy got a winner there. They stayed the course, and they got their guy. So.
And then how about 5th?
Seattle, see, this is a tricky one because they got Geno Smith, and he came off what was he, like top 5 quarterback last year?
I think he finished way high like that. Yeah, he's the former Jets guy, right?
Yeah, West Virginia guy.
West Virginia.
Yeah, he was a backup for many years. He was but he broke out last year. The Seattle trust him. That's the thing. Why would you take C.J. Stroud here if Geno Smith is top 5 quarterback in the draft, or statistically last year in NFL? So this is where I have a problem. I think Seattle is going to take defensive end out of Texas Tech.
Makes sense.
Yeah, Geno Smith is, if they feel like he got a couple more years with them. Why quarterback here?
Yeah, he's always flown under the radar.
Yeah, exactly. So that is my prediction.
So those are the top 5. Now, when we talk about the Vikings, they don't draft till number 24, I think, or 23.
Yeah, they're way down there.
Now, what's their need? The Vikings need, not who they're going to pick, but what's their need this year coming in?
Oh, Marty, well, we made Daniel Jones look like Dan Marino, so
yeah,
you would have to say defense.
It's going to be heavily focused on the defense. Yeah,
corner or interior.
Now we got what's his name from the Saints on the free agent market. That's a nice pickup, right?
Yeah, that'd be solid.
He'll be immediate starter.
But it's either gonna be but you're picking 23rd, so I would say a cornerback or offensive lineman is the Vikings. I would probably, they're gonna focus on defense. I think the first pick, so they need some help there.
Now for the Vikings, because they only have the 4. Or is it 5 picks? Is it going to be heavily defense? You think 2 or 3 of each, offense, defense? Or by then it's going to be by the end. By the time it shakes out, it's going to be irrelevant anyway. They're going to pick up who's ever out there, the best available or position.
Once they get past the first 2 picks they have, I think it's going to be best available after that. Definitely. So you can see a wide receiver in the 2nd pick.
I've been hearing about that. How about tight end? Now, are we set for tight end?
Hawkinson's a beast.
and Irv Smith Jr.
They're great. If Irv Smith's healthy and a healthy Hockey, it's one of the best tight end units in NFL.
So they'll be set there. Maybe a receiver, huh? How big of impact will Thielen departure have?
I don't know. When you watch the Vikings last year, Thielen was invisible for a lot of the games. He wasn't that big of a issue. So I don't know how much of impact. I think maybe in the locker room, maybe with the young guys, he's gonna be missed in certain situations during the game. But overall, as far as talent goes, I don't know.
And he went to Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, and that he will help out there, but I don't. With the Vikings, I think they just kind of he got phased out a little bit last year with Osborne and Jefferson and Hawkinson. There wasn't enough balls for Thielen.
Yeah, that's fair enough. A lot of Vikings fans didn't like the fact that Thielen's gone. They thought maybe he had retired, but they ended up cutting him and he signed. I think it's fair enough. Fair enough move. There wasn't room for him. It gets to be expensive as well. Carolina can use him. That should be, I think, a good move by them. Now, how about, we talked a couple, the talk around the league a couple of years ago from the Minnesota Gophers, the strong Gophers teams that we've had with all these guys playing 4, 5, 6 years. Big projection picks. Tanner Morgan was projected to come out as a number 1 first-round pick as a quarterback. Mo Ibrahim was a projected first-round pick. Now these guys are done. They graduated. John Michael Schmitz. These are some big dogs. Right now, the center, John Michael Schmitz, is the guy that's going to go in the first or second round, probably the second round, I think. But the other guys are going to drop. Mo is going to drop way down, it looks like, and Tanner Morgan's dropping way down. What's your thoughts on why did they shift so much? Why did they move down so bad, so heavily?
Well, Ibrahim, I thought, is a stud, but injuries, and I don't think he caught the ball much out of the backfield. He's kind of he runs good after contact, but you got to remember the NFL is their defensive linemen, the defensive end, their linebackers are so much faster than playing Northwestern. I mean, scouts take that into consideration. Like, well, if this guy ain't gonna be able to hit the gap or break tackles as easily as he could at Minnesota. So I think that's his downfall. He'd be good short yardage, within the goal line type of guy, but I don't think he could hang her hat on Ibrahim.
Now, I looked just yesterday. Mo Ibrahim was listed in the running backs as the 19th best running back out there for the draft. Do you think that's fair, or is that about right?
No, who's 14 ahead of him? I get that. The guy had, what do you have? 21 touchdowns last year, over 1,000. I don't remember his stats.
Well, he's a beast in the Big Ten as far as yardage and touchdowns, and he just does it all. Yeah,
so but you don't get that many scores and that many yards just going through not knowing what you're doing,
going through the motions. Yeah, the guy's talented.
Yeah, exactly.
But they went from the year before, I think, a first-round pick in the draft. Then he had the ACL, blew out the ACL, took the year off, came back, and was still good and strong. But now because he's got that injury, but now most running backs coming out, usually it's almost like baseball, Tommy John surgery. Everyone's having these injuries anyway when they're coming back. It's not rare anymore.
I see 4th round for Ibrahim. I think someone will, maybe a little depth charts a little low on running back, and he can give them spot duty. But probably what they figure in. So
the guy's good. He's good. How about Tanner Morgan? I looked on the ranking charts for quarterbacks that are out there. One has him listed as 13th best on the board. One has him listed as 16th best. Now, how many typical quarterbacks even get drafted in the draft for the first 7 rounds?
I would say 8.
So maybe 8 get taken. He's listed as 16. So odds are he won't even get drafted.
I don't think he will.
And he was another guy a couple of years ago that was projected to be a first-round quarterback drafted in the NFL. Now it looks like he won't be drafted at all. After the draft is over, Craig, the 7 rounds are done. Then the teams, it's kind of fair game to go after those free agents and start signing these guys. So will he get picked up there?
Yes, you would probably see him in a preseason game with somebody.
Okay.
Maybe come third quarter kind of guy. I have a vision of that. So someone will definitely have him come to camp.
And Tanner Morgan was a guy drafted in the first round in the USFL by the Michigan Panthers. But we know that the pay isn't all that great, and it's probably not a good career move to do that. And so he's going to jump over, take his chances here, even though he won't get drafted. Make the team as a free agent acquisition and still make some pretty good coin.
Yeah, definitely.
He's a bright guy, a high IQ guy, smart. And so he could be a good guy to have on a squad as a third quarterback, practice squad guy on running the scout team. Who knows?
Exactly.
That could be a good advantage there for him. And he's getting up there in age after all these years in college. He's not a young guy anymore either.
No, is he like 24?
And he hasn't had really noticeable injuries of anything to talk about. So I think he'd be a good pickup.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't see him going though. I don't see him getting drafted, but I could be way out.
Yeah. That's
interesting. I don't see it. But he'll definitely get some teams will call.
Opportunity will call. And after that is that the draft is done with the 7 rounds on Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening sometime. And then I'm not familiar with those free agent pickups. That's all done after the draft. There you'll usually see that reported the next day online as these guys picking up guys. The free agent pickups are done or selections are basically Saturday night and Sunday. It's basically is it 2 days or 1 day? And the rest of those guys are all gobbled up by then if they're not drafted.
Pretty much.
And then camp. Training camp begins in July, August timeframe. Those preseason games start. There's only 3 preseason games, so these teams should be interesting once get these guys signed and brought in. So drafting them, I've had I wouldn't say an argument, but just because you draft someone does not mean they're going to sign. You could see guys asking for big money and backing out or not wanting to play at a team like this. We've had situations before, even with like a John Elway, Darren Nelson. You can draft me. I'm not going to play for you. And you get into those situations. Anybody here talking big for college? Or do they have so many meetings in the offseason here getting ready for the draft and the combine that who's going to be a good fit, that you kind of know already who's going to be on
Oh, yeah. They don't mess around. They're doing a due diligence for these teams, and if a player doesn't want to play for them, or they don't get the sense that he'd be a good fit, they'll go off of him. They'll draft somebody else. So yeah, definitely. So I don't know if you're ever going to see another holdout again.
Okay. And the positions, the draft positions that they're drafted in are already basically earmarked for the pay, the base salary, the bonuses are at this level for all these selections. Top 50 overall are this. When you get into the 3rd round, you're only going to make X number of dollars. 7th round pick, you're only going to make Y number of dollars. They've got all that pretty much layered out, the range at each one of these positions, much like the baseball as well, MLB draft. What the value of that first overall pick is going to be. So some teams want to trade that down, pick up some other guys lower down from a financial standpoint, going up against the cap. Any teams that you see that are up against the draft, the salary cap that either have a lot of room or they don't have a lot of room for off-season moves. Not related to the draft per se, but in general, who are some of the teams that are up against that cap that don't have much room? I don't follow that a lot. Do you follow that?
The cap?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Jets got a lot of cap space, but a lot of teams they got to be stingy,
And just because you have cap space does not mean that the owner is going to say, yes, let's write a check and sign all these guys.
Exactly.
So
Well,
you get that coming back and forth as well.
Odell Beckham signed for 15 million this year for the Ravens. So a lot of teams couldn't afford him. You know, at 10 million, they didn't want to pay 10 million for him. So that's a lot of teams in the league. They're that's why you see so many free agents nowadays and trades, because we just saw that with Tyreek Hill last year with Kansas City. They couldn't afford him no more, so they had to trade him. So yeah, it's
now
becoming
where did Derek Carr end up?
Saints.
So Carr, I've always liked him as a quarterback, thought he was good, but the Raiders gave him 5 years, whatever it was, and it just wasn't cutting out. Was that a chemistry thing? Was that a chemistry mix?
Well, yeah, because they hired Josh McDaniel as their coach, and then he got benched like 9th game in the season. I mean, then they cut him. So yeah, that's total chemistry.
New scenery. He could be another guy that comes out of nowhere on the fantasy scene. As far as that guy could end up being a stud, could be a dud. You never know with the change of scenery. Sometimes it takes 2 years. That first year is kind of a wash, and then the second year, these guys come out of their shell. But boy, Geno Smith going to the Seahawks. Talk about flying under the radar.
Oh, I don't know what the Raiders are doing, because they just traded Waller in the offseason to the Giants. So I don't know what the Raiders are planning on doing here. So they got Devontae Adams, and then they're just trading everything else away around them. So kind of don't get it.
Now, do you have a thought on here? I'd like to get your thought on this. Tight end Tucker Kraft. South Dakota State.
Oh no.
Now this guy, I don't know if you watched it or not, but the FCS championship title game last year, South Dakota State beat North Dakota State Bison. This guy is a rare prospect. You know, he declared early for the draft in the FCS, which is Division I, lower tier for those not following. But as a pass catching tight end, how do you rank a guy like him?
Probably 10th in tight ends, 8th. I mean, it's tough. I mean, how do you division South Dakota State compared to a tight end that played at Clemson or Mississippi State, or even
It's still there's an element of risk going that route with the FCS guys, right?
Yeah, exactly. But we've seen Carson Wentz, we've seen Trey Lance, we've seen a lot of those guys pop up here in the last few years. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, no. But now, nothing's off the table, you know?
Or do you draft these guys a little lower because you can pick them up? They may fall quicker, and you can pick them up as a sleeper pick later on, knowing they've got huge upside.
Exactly.
Pick them up later.
Yeah, if they played for Clemson, they'll probably go second round. But since they play for South Dakota, you can probably get them late third, fourth.
Now, have you been following the offensive lineman for North Dakota State, the Bison, Cody Mock? Remember when he first came up, looked like the before and after photos of his freshman year, looked like just a chubby young farm kid, right? Cody, as he's developed, as now has the long hair and the missing teeth, he is a beast and is recognized all over the planet. And they show on Twitter the before and after photos of this young, immature kid coming up in football from high school to this beast of a man who graduated from North Dakota State. And Cody, he's the top prospect, basically in all the FCS of all the picks that are out there. He was the offensive tackle for for North Dakota State. Now he allowed 0 sacks in 2022, and he's another multi-position versatility guy that he showed off in the Senior Bowl this year. The guy can move from guard, tackle. They can move him around, very versatile, but a big guy, consistently ranked near the top of these guys for offensive linemen in the FCS. How much of a risk is that guy type of a cat?
He's probably solid, especially if he's versatile. He could come in, maybe not be a starter, but if somebody gets hurt, he can play guard, tackle, whatever you need. That's valuable.
It's a good plug and play, like a utility infielder in baseball. To get a bunch of those types of players that can be plug and played.
And if he's coachable,
high IQ, smart kid, and you can get him in and take you places. He can lot of versatility there. How about the big schools, the big conferences, SEC, the Pac-10? Any big noticeable notables that you're going to be looking for from some of these guys? Washington, Oregon, UCLA, Pac-10 teams, Stanford.
Gonzalez, cornerback for Oregon, he's really good. SEC. Will Levis is a mystery to me because he has all the tools to be a top 5 pick at quarterback for Kentucky, but I don't know. He didn't look that great last year, and he's a mystery to me. But he could be the next Josh Allen or the next Ryan Leaf.
Is there any doubt, I guess, if you're going to pick a quarterback from Kentucky? Is that another kind of a thing that you typically don't hear? You don't want to take a chance on that guy. Now, he could be a stud as well, but
Tim Couch he was the first overall pick out of Kentucky. I think.
Okay.
Maybe taken out of Kentucky, but I really like the upside of Hooker of Tennessee. That quarterback, I think he is still definitely. I have my eye on him. I think he's a steal.
Now, when the draft comes on, are you a guy that'll turn on that TV and sit in front of it and watch the whole draft, or will you have it on in the background while you're doing something else because of the time in between, the time it takes to have these draft announcements come up? It takes a while. I've run into people that are two different sets. Some folks like to have it on the side and have something else on. NBA, NHL game going on this time of year, playoffs, or do you sit and watch it and listen to all the commentary in between? Is that helpful to you, or is that boring stuff from the analysts?
I will probably DVR it.
Okay.
And wait till a half hour in and then start watching it.
I see.
Yeah, because the commercials and everything else is I'm too antsy. I want to get to the picks. I don't want to sit there and watch commercials and people getting up there trying to sell Girl Scout cookies in between drafts, So I would just rather get cut to the chase,
Cut to the chase, get the picks in. And that first round, what is the time limit on the first round picks?
I think it's 5 minutes. I want to say. I can't tell you for sure. It's either.
Okay. Yeah, the first round goes long. Second and third, it's a little sooner, and the fourth through the seventh rounds are much faster yet. So they clip along pretty fast, the later rounds. But most people are interested in that first round. And I've seen some people, hey, let's go sit and watch it. Let's go to a bar, and then your favorite team picks an offensive lineman you don't know anything about, and then it's okay. Let's go home. You want the flashy, the skill position players, but the NFL teams have to draft what they need, even though it's not flashy. In the past, they always had the contingent in New York with the Jets and Giants fans were all there at Madison Square Garden during the draft. They'd be cheering and holding up banners and dressed up with face paint. Now they start rotating this around to different venues, and this year is Kansas City. But do you like that it's not just in downtown New York and New York City? It's at different locations. Was it Vegas last year?
Yep. I think they should go back to New York once every 4 years and then rotate other cities.
The other 3 years, different cities.
Yeah, definitely.
because they're also combining this with their. It's not just the draft; it's also owners' meetings and stuff like that, right? That's going on in addition to the
Um,
draft.
yes, I think the GM meetings were last week or
Okay.
something, if I'm correct.
Well,
But
that'll be fun, but yeah, they did because of the ratings for something like this. They now make this its own event. It's a night primetime event on TV that you can watch. Just the first night, it's just the first round. That's all it is. But it's 32 teams picking. It does turn into a 3-hour affair or whatever it is. But the Friday night, to some extent, is actually better than next night's draft with the second and third quicker picks. They're moving a little faster, and there's 2 rounds there. But yeah, that first round, you're going to see all the highlights, all the footage. After they name the pick, they'll bring up all the video collage of their what they've done, all their stats. So they've got huge stats gathered on each one of these players. It's just too much. And a guy like Mel Kiper Jr., this is really what he does. This is what he does year round, and then he focuses on it. But you can get the actual magazine that's got all this draft picks, every player spotlighted. It's a huge production versus what it was decades ago where you pick the biggest name out there. You've gotten to meet and greet these guys now. You know everything about them. You watch video. You met them in person. You see them in the combine. You probably, in most of these cases, met their family. I mean, it's unreal. It's
well, now you
like,
got pro days where 80 people are going to CJ Stroud's pro day.
yeah.
So besides the combine, you got pro days. You got it's the only besides maybe the NBA, it blows every major sports draft out of the water. I mean, baseball, no one cares about the draft. Hockey, no one cares. Maybe the NBA and then NFL is on its own
And so,
planet.
the reason for that is the Major League Baseball draft. You're drafting guys that you're not going to see on
Oh,
TV for
100.
probably 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, some kid from Lake.
NHL draft, same thing. You're drafting kids in college that aren't even going to be playing anywhere, that are still allowed to play college. The hockey kids before, and it's a couple of years before you see them in the NHL. Football, you see them right away.
Oh yeah,
Right away, whether they're starting or not, they're the big deal. And they'll cut to the home, the live footage of them reacting to the draft pick, with the family and friends around them, or at the location that they're at, or if they're on site. So I always think when I watch this, Craig, is you wonder how many folks are out there with TV film crews at all these various locations just for that first round, because you don't know when they're going to get picked. But they got a sound guy, a camera guy, a lighting guy, a whole crew there at someone's house sitting in their basement in front of the big screen TV. And once they get picked, they go to them. So they got to send out all these folks, but it's big, big money. They're not worrying about cutting costs for the NFL draft. Big cash is involved with all these field reporters sitting in the
well,
people's homes.
and it's the only draft where you could draft the third round, fourth round, and fifth round means something. NHL by after the second round, you're just taking flyers. You maybe hope a guy can make your AHL team. So yeah, the draft it matters.
And
Almost
in NBA, there are only 2 rounds, right?
yeah. After the 10th pick in the first round of the NBA, it's pretty much a wash. You're
So they
not.
turned this into a 3-day deal, 7 rounds of picks. It all accumulates to the very last pick of the draft.
Which
What
is
is the what's the name? What's the name of the last guy?
irrelevant.
Mr. Irrelevant. So the last person picked in the 7th round before they shut the doors and shut it down is always called Mr. Irrelevant. And then it's always fun to see who that person is and what they do in the future.
Yeah, they get a trip to Disneyland and all that stuff.
It's watching the draft is like a circus. It's a lot of fun because they'll go into the things, the details too, about the families and where they came from, their upbringing, and some of these long shots they talked about. They were living in poverty on the streets, and their parents were, died in a car wreck when they were 5 years old, and all the obstacles they've overcome. You get to hear all these feel good stories, these humanitarian types of stories too, because they got this time to kill, 5 minutes or so in between each of the picks. So when they start off, and you get to know the guys, but I remember as a kid, growing up, I always couldn't wait to get that Sunday, the sports section to see who got who. It wasn't
Yeah.
on TV. There wasn't 3 days. You had to wait to get the sports page to see who got drafted where. Your local team, that was in the front page. You saw that on the news, but you didn't know where anyone else went in the draft. So you'd have to scour the small print of the Sunday paper. Now it's all real time. There's draft clock crawls going across the bottom of the screen, not constantly updated as you're watching these drafts of who's all picked in summaries as you go. What teams got who, which college teams got the most guys drafted. You'll see that the bragging rights for that. The Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Alabama. The big schools. Who's got the most guys drafted, and because they get the bragging rights for that too. So those kinds of teams are looking to see how many guys will get drafted, just to have their claim to fame. Gophers typically have a couple guys in each year drafted, right? Minnesota Gophers.
Yeah, definitely. What Bateman last year, wasn't it, or 2 years ago? Bateman,
receiver.
Yeah, Baltimore. They love him. He's great. If he can stay healthy, he's a number 2, number 1 receiver. So definitely. But we haven't talked about is what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers on draft day.
Oh yes. So
can't go to the Jets. I don't think the Jets want to give up their first round pick for him. I think that's the holdup here.
Big stats, big numbers, a future Hall of Famer, but they don't. There's too much conflict. There's too much. The Packers, I think it's obvious they don't want him anymore from a management perspective. But he's going to bring big money, but he's also going to bring controversy and stuff. So you have to weigh that out. So you think the Jets how well would he do in New York City?
I think he'd be fine. The Jets are doing everything to get him. They signed Alan Lazar. They've done all the stuff he wants. So I don't know what the holdup is. It has to be that first round pick. I don't think the Jets want to give it to Green Bay. So I don't know what Green Bay would take in return, but besides if the first round pick ain't on the table, but
now would he be an immediate impact? He's only been in one system. He only knows the Packers system. He's probably a quick study and a quick learn, but I don't think he'd be a guy that would take a couple of years to develop. He'd be impactful right away.
It depends. If he wants to take vacation in the rainforest all the way up to training camp and not work with the guys, or his new teammates, and that he's going to be slow out of the gate first 4 weeks, But if he's wants to show up at camp and do what he needs to do to gel with his new team, yeah, he could have real impact. Definitely. So I don't know. Could it be Tennessee that wants Aaron Rodgers? Could it be maybe another team out there? I'm totally intrigued by this.
How many years does he have left?
I think he has 3 years left on his contract.
No, I'm sorry, not the contract, but how many years left as a quality NFL quarterback do you think he has still playing in the NFL?
2.
2
for sure.
Yeah.
And an option for 4, I think.
Okay.
I think he's that good. I really do. I don't think he's been fairly healthy throughout his career. So you don't have to worry about like bad shoulders creeping up on him or something. But I think he's got definitely 2 good years left for sure. So
the Packers, the offset to this is Jordan Love, who's waiting in the wings, right?
Yeah.
What's your take on him?
He is solid, but they're gonna have to build around him. They need to draft like tight end and like that Myers kid from Notre Dame, or that guy from Utah. To give him, he needs a really reliable targets, and then I'm sure Watson and Dobbs will do good this year for him. But they got to give Love some options. He's not Aaron Rodgers, so he can't just make magic. So they got to be more structured, sound. The Packers will with Love, and I think he can succeed. He's not going to be throw for 330 every Sunday and 3 touchdowns. You're gonna have to win with him throwing 179 yards and a score. So that's how the Packers got to look at it, in my opinion.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Years ago, I really watched that whole Brett Favre situation play out. When he was going to be the guy, and it took years to come in, and they finally, they sat on Aaron Rodgers for those years, and then Favre went back and forth and was retiring. And then he came out of retirement, and Rodgers was like, "I'm ready to go," and had all those couple years sitting there, and now finally waiting. And now it seems like the Packers are almost in the same situation now, that they'd rather just cut the bait and move on to Love, rather than, are we going to keep Rodgers? Are we not? It's kind of recycling that same concept.
But he hasn't been traded yet. So what happens if he shows up in September in a Packers uniform? He hasn't been traded yet. There's still that. He's still under contract. It's not like, maybe Green Bay says, no, we're going to keep you. Who knows? I mean, Bay doesn't want him no more, but Favre doesn't, or Rodgers doesn't really want to be there no more. I mean, you would think they have to get rid of him. But
I would think they would have to, but I've seen stranger things happen. You never know.
The elite quarterback, you got to get something back. Otherwise, you're going to look like a fool. And, you don't want to trade him for a 4th-round pick, and he comes out and throws 38 touchdowns and 12 receptions. And you got Jordan Love. You could still have Rodgers if things worked out. So I don't know. This is a tough one. I don't know what Green Bay's. I could still see him in a Green Bay uniform start of next season.
Interesting. It's tough. Yeah, it's interesting. Now the only thing I've got here in closing is, by moving the draft around, I got a feeling this Kansas City group is going to be quite wild for the draft. The ones that'll be there on site. We talked about the Jets, Giants were always wild fans at Madison Square Garden, but Chiefs fans are not like any other fans. These guys, when it comes to pride, Chiefs fans are like no others. Do you think they're going to have a pretty wild time there at this draft?
You ever been there, Arrowhead? You ever seen a game in Kansas City?
I never have, no.
Okay, neither have I. So, Kansas City, have you ever been there?
Yes.
How is that town?
I love it. On Sunday game days, I was there on a weekend, and was flying out on a Sunday. And the people, even in the airport, everyone wears red. We're talking the entire city on game day is red. People traveling, going to the game, going out to get groceries, going to the store, the supermarket on a Sunday. On game day, it's a sea of red. Their whole city lives and dies by that Chiefs team.
It's going to be a good one.
It is crazy. And the tailgating is like none other. So those guys are like, if you think of, the Raiders fan base or some of these other teams that are nuts, Packers, Chiefs are a different animal altogether. That city shuts down. They don't do anything for the Royals. They're not a big Royal town there for baseball.
Really? That's got to be one of the best baseball stadiums in.
It is, and it's a great atmosphere, and it's a great field. I've been to that, but there's nothing like Arrowhead Stadium for the football. I've walked around it. I haven't been inside to get a tour of that place, but their fans, the Chiefs fans, are another whole breed. Is all I can say. That their city basically shuts down for football.
Yeah,
it would be a fun place to go if anyone is doing road trips to different football venues. That Chiefs is very much like a college football atmosphere. I think for those pro games, it's crazy. I would recommend it. If anyone hasn't gone there yourself, Craig, you should take in a Chiefs game.
Yeah.
Arrowhead. Oh my goodness. An afternoon, 3:00 start. These guys, the tailgating is unbelievable as well. I mean, these guys rank up there with the Eagles fans, I think. So it's crazy. It's crazy stuff. So the first round is on Thursday, the 27th, Friday nights, rounds 2 and 3. And then Saturday, the 29th is the remaining rounds. We'll see how you did, Craig, on your predictions here.
I also got one more you can take to Vegas.
Okay.
Christian Okoye is going to announce the Chiefs draft pick. They're gonna get big pop from the.
They are gonna Christian Okoye. He is gonna announce the pick, or that's your pick. Oh,
That's
that's your bet. Christian Okoye. I think they should do it. Have Barry Word, Marcus Allen. Yeah, Joe Montana was a saint. Was a Chief. So it'll be interesting to see what they do here. And like you said, who they get to introduce the picks are sometimes fun to watch too.
exactly.
It's not just the president, CEO, or the general manager. You get random people making these picks that the TV focuses over, and you get the camera a spotlight on some random person. They've got these. It's almost like people throwing out the first pitch at a ball game. They've got these lined up, scheduled out a year in advance. Who's going to do announce the second pick or the first pick or the third pick? It's a big production. So we'll look for Christian Okoye on that, Craig.
Yep.
Anything else on the draft? Anything else in closing thoughts?
No. I just feel like there's going to be a lot of moving around in this draft. I like I said, Arizona's not going to be at 3. They're not going to pick at 3. There's going to be a lot of teams flip-flopping here and there. So, but I'm telling you right now, Richardson's going number 1. So that's a lock.
We'll take it. We'll take it to the bank. All right. Well, I'd like to thank you for your time today, Craig, going over this. This is good stuff. Well, hopefully going forward, we'll do this every year in anticipation of the NFL draft. Do a preview show like this, a bonus episode here at Sports and Songs.
You got it, Dan. Thanks for
All right. Thanks for your time.
All right. Thanks, bud.
Yep. See ya.